What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today when I talk to you about Beyond Meat, I want to go over some of the data points, what shorts did, and what really caused it to push lower today. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Beyond Meat went down 23.06%, extending it a little bit further, down 4.35%, 208 the low, 335 the high, and about 765 million shares being traded. 274 is the average. Most of that volume, on a side note, was algorithmic trading, just adding a certain level of suppression, which was rather odd because the broader market was booming like crazy. So Beyond Meat definitely didn't get the love whatsoever today, and the market was really moving because of data. So CPI came in month over month better than anticipated, so 0.3 versus 0.4 year over year, 3%. So it came in flat. And over and above CPI, we also did have Michigan consumer sentiment, S&P Global put out composite, manufacturing and services. All of that was on point. And even going back to CPI for a second, if we kind of look at that data and analyze it one step further, the month over month, the energy did go up 1.5%. So that does mean that the other basket items did go down significantly. So this data was like amazing. So that's one thing that really kind of pumped up the market today, and so rightfully so. And because of all this, you also have the market really starting to price in a 25 basis point cut for the meeting next week, and now a potential 50 basis point cut for the December meeting. So that would be, again, huge for the broader market, amazing for growth stocks, but in Beyond Meat's case, didn't really care. What really did happen was you had shorts hit it hard first. So at its peak, shorts were increasing about 12.3 million shares. So they really hit it hard first, and then they just kind of let it do its thing. And I think generally speaking, from what I can see on social media, there's been a lot of rotation happening, even among retail. So for instance, when Beyond Meat was starting to get a lot of hype, roughly around that 50 cent and dollar range, you had a lot of people saying, hey, I'm going to sell Open Door and other stocks and buy into Beyond Meat. So that's what really caused things to heat up very fast. And lately, from what I can see, a little bit yesterday, but definitely today, a lot of people were getting out of Beyond Meat and rotating back into Open Door, for instance, which did go up 13.37%. So I think there's just a little bit of rotation happening. And I think no matter what, Beyond Meat, there is that divide. Some people do truly like the fundamentals of the stock. In my opinion, I don't think the fundamentals are there. The whole hype that did come wasn't because it was a value play. It was because Ortex and a lot of other platforms did show that it was like 80% short interest. And so it was massively shorted. And even at the peak, I think it showed like 111%. But now, since a lot of those same platforms have updated the true amount of shares being shorted, now it's only 17.5. So I think that kind of burst a lot of people's mentality of having like a mother of all short squeeze type of scenario. Still could happen. We saw several times in the last couple of years Beyond Meat squeeze with similar type of short interest, but I think just the expectations now are a little bit lower. So that's my opinion of what really happened. So a little bit of rotation coming from retail and shorts really hitting it hard. By the end of the day, though, they did increase 1.78 million shares. So that was shorts. So 17.5% of the free floats being shorted works out to be 67.28 million shares overall being shorted. Looking at the options, 43 million in calls, 33 million in puts, 56% of all the options being done were bearish in nature. Coming from a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to kind of be $3 to $4 by the end of next week. And then the bears are anticipating for it to be sub, kind of looks like $1.50 to $2. So a little bit more downside is anticipated. One thing to take note of though is quickly popping over here, looking at the market position, you see a lot more willing sellers today, and you also see a little bit of a gap. So a strong amount of willing buyers up until around that 202. And so it did have a low of today of 208, but if it does going into next week break below that, then you could see a little bit of a additional push lower to that $1.47. And that's what the bearish options are really kind of assuming is going to happen. Today, it did break below pretty much all of the key moving averages that generally people look at. So the 50, 100, and also 200. So today wasn't that great of a day for the technicals. Still is above that 10-day moving average, so a little bit of good momentum there. But like I said, I think it's just a little bit more of a psychological game that is happening right now. So if you do truly believe that a squeeze is on the table, dollar cost average, swing trade, and whatever else, just kind of buy the dip, if that makes sense. If you are in it because of the fundamentals, I think you need to take time over the weekend and really have a deep thought of their financials, some of the recent PRs that have been coming out about it, and just digest all that. In my opinion, I don't think the fundamentals are there, but I've been very open about that. So I think this has been a very big hype momentum play, and still could go higher, but I think for today, it was going through consolidation and people were rotating out. Nothing coming out from the company itself, but I do got to give them a round of applause for actually putting out some operational updates. So they are trying to get some people on top of just it being a value play, at least in their mind. I don't know if that really worked out too well for them. But aside from all of that, though, when it comes down to this, with today being Friday, this is the open interest. So with it closing exactly at 219, that does mean that the $2 and below strike prices are in the money. So you have 27,000 at the 2, 18,000 at the $1.50, and then 25,000 at the 1. Nothing too crazy, in my opinion, so you won't be seeing any mother of all gamma squeezes going into next week. These are some of the transactions that did occur on the secondary market. So first one, 3.9, and then 1.7, and then pretty much you can kind of see the rest. Feel free to pause the video and just look at the timestamp. These are some of the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. So a couple ones just happening after hours here, but big ones today were 1.8, 1.3, and then 1.2. And then aside from that, with it at 219, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 204 is going to be a strong support. 271 followed by 312. But when it comes down to momentum plays, sometimes you have to take all this with a grain of salt. But this does really paint a picture, as I mentioned. If this pivot point does break of, let's say, 204, you could see a push lower to that 130 range. 130 to, I think I showed 142 on the actual chart. So don't be kind of surprised if we do see a little bit of extra volatility or potentially even a pullback to that stage. So let me know your thoughts on Beyond Meat. Are you a buyer? Are you a seller? Were you in it because of the fundamentals, or are you still in it because of the fundamentals? What's your kind of 2 cents on all of that? One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point, including yours truly. So I did post this as a buy signal at 65 cents, and I even said that it will most likely go to about that $4 range, $3 to $4 range. And then at that stage, once that did hit, I did say that most likely it'll peak, at least based on that, not counting a squeeze if it does happen, to $6. And so both came out to like on point. I haven't given an update since then. So if you are interested, pop over to the Patreon. Maybe I'll do an update over the weekend and give you kind of my general thoughts on where it might be going from here next. So pop over there. And with all that said, appreciate all of you watching.